Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's training regarding equipment grants and bidding for those. I'm going to, real quick, we're going to introduce ourselves, the folks that are here, and then I'm going to go through some housekeeping rules. So my name is Randy Jones. I'm an assistant director here at DPI. I'm over the USDA Foods and Procurement area.
And I'm Claire Nagel. I'm also from DPI, and I also deal with USDA Foods and Procurement.
And I'm Lauren Troxel. I'm a nutrition program consultant and the equipment grant specialist.
So welcome to today's meeting. So right now we're going to get into some really quick housekeeping. I'm going to switch over my screen, and it should look similar to your screen. So please don't, panic or anything like that. So first off, in the middle of the screen, if you want to turn on your webcam, you want everybody to see you, you can do that, but we recommend don't doing that. So please do not click that button. And also, we have everybody muted, so please don't unmute your audio. At some point in this, we will allow everybody to ask questions, but ideally, for asking questions, on the right-hand side of the screen, if you click Hide Conversations, this may be what you're looking at. To get the chat feature to open up, just click this little thing here. It looks like a little bitty cartoon message thing. Click it, and it will bring in all of the conversations. And you just go right down here, and you can just type in something, and it will be shared with everybody. We will try to answer your questions as we conduct the meeting. There may be times that we will pause for certain questions to actually verbally answer those questions. Now, for one other feature that might help your experience is that if this screen seems a little too small for your computer, if you go into the center of your screen, just follow my mouse here, and it says More Actions. There's these three little dots. If you click that, you can scroll up here where it says Enter Full Screen, and it'll actually maximize this whole screen. And to get out of that, either you can go do the same process again to exit full screen, or you can just hit Escape, and Escape will take you right back to a normal screen that you're used to. So one last time, can everybody hear me okay? If somebody cannot, please put in the chat feature that you're having a difficult time hearing us. We will try to speak up or more clearly. And all right, we're off. So, all right, so equipment grant specifications. Lauren's going to lead us off here, and she wanted me to bring up the webpage. So we're going to show you how to get to the grant application. We're going to start with the basics.
All right, so if you're all familiar with the Wisconsin School Nutrition website, you're going to go over to the left-hand side under School Nutrition, scroll down to the grant opportunities, and under grant opportunities, you'll click on USDA Equipment Grant, fiscal year 2019. This year, we have changed up our process, so it'll be a two-part process. The first part of the process is for you to fill out the application, explaining your interests, letting us know what your free and reduced eligibilities are, and then submitting your specifications for the equipment that you are hoping to apply for. The first part of the equipment application period will be open. It started October 17th, and it'll go through November 15th. So you'll want to download the forms under New Application Process, the Equipment Grant Application, and for each piece of equipment that you are looking into, you'll want to download a specification sheet. You'll then fill those out, and they'll submit them back to us by November 15th. We'll review them and let you know if there's anything that you need to clarify before proceeding with the actual bid process. As a reminder, each piece of equipment should be a per unit cost of at least $1,000. The equipment should be over your SFA's capitalization threshold or USDA's threshold of $5,000. whichever is less. If you are unsure of your SFA's capitalization threshold, you'll want to check with your business administrative office to find out what that is. As a note, each piece of equipment is a per unit cost. So if you're looking to replace tables, we will look at each individual table as a piece of equipment. So make note of that as you're going through your needs.
Okay.
All right, well, that's the application process. Now let's get talking about the bidding and doing the specifications. For that, we will, we have a PowerPoint ready to go.
Okay, so I'll be talking about the next few slides here. And just to give you a little background on my experience, I worked 32 years in the institutional setting. The last 14 years was in a setting that we did have students that we were under the DPI Food Nutrition Program. So a lot of this information that I'm sharing today, I might be referring to some lesson that I learned along the way. So hoping that helps all of you here today. Okay, next slide. Okay, so our objective today is dealing with the specifications form that you need to fill out is how do you procure what you need? So the basic things that we're going to talk about is making sure that you're going to obtain equipment that you actually need and will work for your operations. So that definitely falls into determining the specifications of the equipment. Reviewing the grants the last 2 years, it was kind of evident to us that we need to supply some more tools for all of you to help with you in procuring your equipment that's going to work best for your applications. So for your kitchen, so that's where we're going to really talk about specifications today. And who are your equipment resources? The resources out there are endless, whether you live in a very rural area or whether you're in a metropolitan area. The resources are there, and hopefully we can help guide you to those today. And then also low cost versus whole cost. One of the concerns we saw with the grants was that you had the piece of equipment, but there wasn't any information given for the grant or dollars allotted for the grant that included installation, hookup, and making sure that the equipment would work in your facility. So those are things that we're going to focus on here. So evaluating your needs. One of the things that I learned through the years is that what is the highest priority is always a guessing game, because suddenly a piece of equipment that you only had 8 years, it doesn't work one day. And so that's real critical, is to try and determine what are your highest priorities. And I don't want to get into too many specifics, but there are actually things out there on the web that will tell you the life of a piece of equipment. And we'll share those out on our webpage eventually, hopefully in the near future. Those resources are where you can look at the life expectancy of equipment. The biggest thing to focus on is your future needs of your program. Think about not just today, but also, is there any plans or projections for your district or for your school that you're looking at increasing enrollment or decreasing enrollment? Where is your needs going? Equipment size, it's real critical. You can't fit a ship in a bottle is one thing, and I learned that with one piece of equipment one time, that it wouldn't fit through any of the doorways in the building. So we actually had to take it apart to get it in. So be critical or aware of the size of your equipment. Can it get into the kitchen? And then the place that you're going to be placing the equipment, are you going to a bigger piece of equipment, and will it still fit into the space that the current piece is located? And then utility requirements are so critical. And again, I learned by mistakes that what I ordered did not match our electrical capabilities at the time. Is probably the most critical, as well as if you're in an older facility or a school, then you have to really look at your plumbing, because it can be outdated and the current equipment may not fit the plumbing that you currently have, and there's going to need to be alterations made. Delivery details, again, are really critical. Is it going to be coming free on board, or is there extra delivery cost, as well as removal of your old equipment? Do you want to put that into your bid so that they take the piece of equipment for you? That isn't a bad idea with the cost of disposal currently. That's something that you should be thinking about and looking at. Installation, who's going to hook the piece of equipment up, especially if you're dealing with plumbing, electric, steam. All those things are critical and are costly and can be very costly after you get a piece of equipment in. And then the disposal of even the crating, that if you're ordering a large piece of equipment, that's really critical. The other thing with delivery details I want to share before I forget is inspect that piece of equipment when it comes to your dock. Do not accept it. I've learned by mistake. If the box looks damaged, don't accept it. You're better off to reship and wait than to receive a piece of equipment that's damaged, because it's very hard once you sign for the piece of equipment to go back. And then training and operation are critical too. A new piece of equipment, especially with all the equipment that's available these days, there's a lot of technical aspects to the piece of equipment. And then don't forget, as part of the training is the maintenance of the equipment. That can be critical in different types of equipment also. So where do you get your specifications from? And research is really key. And again, there are so many options out there. If you're looking for a dishwasher, start Googling or start looking on the web, just put in dishwasher specs. And if you know a size, if you're going to have a door or a flight or depending upon what type of machine you have now, you can just put in those few words and put in the word specifications with it, and you will receive lots of information. That's one way to start. The probably most critical component that I've seen that has led to very successful procurement of equipment is a site visit. As part of our bid requirements, we would put in that bidders needed to attend a site visit on a specific day. And yes, you can have them all come at one time. You don't have to meet with them individually, because you're just reviewing the piece of equipment that you're needing, and they get to see the area that you're needing to have it placed in and hooked up, and what services you have in your kitchen as far as electrical and all the different components that can go into a piece of equipment coming in. So talk to the experts. They are always there to help you, and a great tool for resources so that you do not have to start from ground zero trying to figure everything out for a piece of equipment. Network with your peers. Obviously, you have other schools that hopefully you have some networking. If not, try and reach out to other schools. But along with other schools, the other critical thing is any local businesses. If you're in a smaller community where there is no other schools locally, or you don't have that connection, think about food service in general. There's so many businesses that involve food service and have to have equipment. So it can be as simple as local restaurants, and a hospital in the area, long-term care facilities. They're all in our communities, and they all have food service. So don't hesitate to reach out and network with those businesses that are in your area, because that can help you maybe find resources for an expert that is in the area local to you that would be able to come out and help. The other really critical factor, as I mentioned before, that I made the mistake of was not including maintenance repair staff and the trades. By the trades, I mean electrical, plumbing, if you have steam in your facility, the person that maintains that and knows all the components of all the different specs that need to go along with steam is a whole nother world. And obviously we, as a food service, we don't know and we do not have that knowledge. So reach out to somebody that has that knowledge and can really assist and make your procurement of your equipment very successful. The other thing is your smallware suppliers. I'm sure everybody has a smallware supplier. Don't forget that if they're smallware, they're probably large equipment also, or they have the connections to get you to a large equipment supplier. Distributors, almost all, I would say all distributors, prime vendors, also deal with smallwares and large equipment. So don't forget them as a resource for information and guidance and experts. They might not have somebody in their actual area, but they do have connections to all the equipment suppliers. And then again, talk with your experts. One of my favorite things that I learned probably about 20 years into experience was that brokers are key resources and really save a lot of time. And if you just Google food service brokers, Wisconsin, you're going to get a very large list. You'll be very surprised. And if you're having trouble finding any, I can help you do a search. I cannot recommend any, but I had my favorite, that's for sure. The minute I was looking for equipment, I was in touch with the broker, and it just saved so much time on my end. There's also manufacturer representatives, and you can just Google if you're really set on a brand name that one has been successful with you, for your services, operations. It doesn't hurt just to contact them too, and they'll help you get the information that you need. They're the experts. They have the information very quickly to you also. So those are great resources that I highly recommend. So with all that information, then we're going to look at an example. The first thing listed here is, okay.
I'm sorry, back.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to
the first links, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I did to prepare for this training is I reached out to one of my resources and just told her, can you give me specifications for a milk cooler, for the combi oven, dishwasher, and a reach-in refrigerator? And it was 2 days later, and I received this document. And it's basically all the specs that are critical when you're purchasing these types of equipment. They're basic specs. Even though they do list a brand name, we'll go over how on when you do your bids that you just put or equivalent. And I did. That was part of our procurement also. We did have we did list a brand name because that gave all the specifications for the bidder to be putting in and putting it. And did we receive bids back that were different brands? Yes, we did. We always did. And we always looked at those equally. But there it gets critical to make sure you're looking at the specs very closely because they might not exactly meet your needs electrically or gas lines or any of those components, the critical components. So, okay.
Next up.
Yep.
Milk first.
Okay. I'll let you.
Okay. So, all right. So this is the actual part of the application process. So you'll want to complete this application all the way through. When Claire and I, and also we had some other folks here, kind of help pull this together to help schools, that's where this initiated actually, is that we found that there was a need, that people asked, do you have any resources to help us bid out this equipment? And it's an area that we've kind of hesitated to do because there's so many different options. We have 3 different, or more than 3 different ones. We have milk, refrigerator, dish machine, vehicle, combi oven. The list actually goes on. So it's really hard to develop generic specifications, generic bids to hit all of those things. And so if you can imagine, if we were to develop resources that were unique for each one of them, we would have 90 different types of bids out there. So what we did is we developed this, and we hope that this helps you through the procurement process. This is going to be used to actually make the bids, but also use this when you're talking to those experts, because this is going to kind of walk you through some of the information that you're going to need to ask them. And so let's get started. All right, so the first part of this is general information. And this is what you're going to put in there about your school agency code, school name, let's see, mailing address, city, state, zip, all of the communication as far as how they're going to contact you would go here. That's the general information. The next section is going to be, these are really, really basic terms and conditions. Okay, these are normally terms and conditions we see in almost every equipment bid out there. So, you're going to need terms around bid pricing. Because this grant, the way it's structured, you'll see language in here that the bid pricing must be effective for 6 months. If you have issues with that, don't hesitate to contact us. Sometimes that can be a challenge. The next part, lowest bid wins. All right, so that's how the bidding process works. The lowest bid is awarded the purchase. However, just because it's the lowest bid, there's another thing in there that is critical about these specifications, is that you're only going to award this to the bidder who meets all your requirements and that is also a responsible bidder. So if you do get a bid back from a supplier that you've had issues with in the past, that you have documented all those issues, you do not necessarily need to accept that bid. Contact us, let us know the situation so that if we can give you the thumbs up so you'll have our approval in advance for excluding a bidder, because it's kind of rare, but it does happen. Next, you want to reserve the right to cancel a bid. That's just kind of standard for all bidding and for any reason, and then followed with payment terms. Now, again, these are just basic terms and conditions. If you have extras that you would want to add, there's a whole section in here you can just type right up. Or if your school has standard terms and conditions, you can put in here, type in see attached special terms or school terms and conditions so that they'll have all that available. All right. Next up is going to be the scope and purpose. Again, this is for the grant, and it's got a certain requirements that need to be there as far as making the school more efficient, as far as energy, and there's other goals of the grant. That's just written in there. And then we have responding to solicitation instructions. So eventually, once you figure out the equipment that you need, your specifications, everything that goes along with that, and you send this out there, this is the section they're going to go to. Who do I return my bid to? Well, here's Mary Tree and Weston, Wisconsin. This is where they're going to send that information. And then there's a bid due date. This is when they would need to return that bid back to you, okay? So those are just, the very first page is just basic bidding information. The next page, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. This is where you start narrowing down exactly what you want, communicating to the bidders, not only the type of equipment, which in this case is a milk cooler, but the type of equipment that you're replacing. And that's really critical information for them because it kind of lets them know that, okay, here's the footprint, here's the way the current equipment is installed. It kind of lets them know where you are going with that. So they'll know that this is the type of equipment that you're replacing. Intended use. In this situation, for storing and servicing milk for students, you can get more specific in that if you want to, or you can keep it very general. But think of these 4 sections here when you're communicating and you ask them to come out to your school to do a site visit, to, ask them, and you're explaining to them the kind of equipment that you need. That's some of the information that you might want to write in here. Any kind of limitations, the product specifications of the brand that you would like or that may be recommended to you, that is fine, just like Claire was saying. But after that, you always want to write or equivalent. That's how you're going to get those other brands in there. That is a regulatory requirement. And the reason for that is that it allows for maximum competition. And there may be things out there you didn't consider. There may be a brand product out there you were unaware of that actually meets your specifications and your needs better than the one that you thought you wanted. Next up is shipping and freight costs. All of these equipments, there's going to be some shipping and some, actually let me back up one time. Claire, is there anything you wanted to add to this section? Because we had some great conversations about this.
I think one thing I forgot to add to this was that you want to put like intended use, include your number of like students or how many meals, can be real critical to, for your expert to help you realize what piece of equipment best meets your needs. And again, think about in the future, not just today, so that the equipment services you well.
Yep. Good point. And I also wanted to illustrate over here on the side, quantity needed. Sometimes you want more than one. So that's where you'd put that. And again, these are great conversational pieces as people are doing the on-site visit. You're going to learn after maybe talking with 2 or 3 suppliers. If you have that many come out, your knowledge for that equipment is going to shoot way up, and you can actually get a little bit more detailed and refined in this section. So again, shipping and freight costs, just know that, you know, these things cost money to get to your school. Sometimes it's included, sometimes it's not. Here you want to specify that. This is the delivery address. This is kind of a generic address. Keep in mind that if there's a special location at the school, don't use your general address. You can use that, but then add the note, our docks are around the back near the parking lot. Let's see here, the number of calendar days for delivery after receipt of order, you want that to be not too long after, once you put in that order. And basically that's when you get the thumbs up for the grant and you want to make the purchase.
One other thought about the delivery, you want to make sure they understand whether there's a dock available or whether a lift gate will need to be utilized to, for the equipment to come into the facility.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then down here are just kind of some basic things that we've found with equipment, that these are questions that you're definitely going to want to be able to answer. And also when you're, you know, talking with the suppliers, you know, what's kind of the standard. So removal of old equipment, again, that can cost money. Sometimes you can get a deal for when they're installing it, just to have them haul the other one away. Site visit requirement, this is something that I highly recommend, especially if you're new at purchasing a particular type of equipment, or just in general. If you're just new to how all this stuff works, those suppliers, they're going to show you all the different options. It's going to make you more comfortable and confident when you realize when they come out there that they're going to look at the room, whatever type of equipment, for this example, a milk cooler, they're going to maybe recommend saying, hey, you know what? The way your line is structured, you might want a milk cooler with wheels. Or the one that you have now may be fixed, but the way that it is fixed to the floor, you might need to have a special base or something like that. They're going to be able to answer very specific type questions like that, that maybe things you never even considered asking. They're also going to be able to help you if they notice that you have certain electrical requirements, you know, to make sure that your electrical board can handle the certain amperage that the equipment, in this case the milk cooler, has. Beyond that, we have warranty requirements you might have. You may have a warranty. You might, after talking to a few, go, yeah, you know, it's pretty standard to have a 3-year service and labor warranty for this product. I want to make sure I have a requirement for it. And I hear that the compressors go out on these things after about 3 or 4 years. So, and it's not uncommon to have 5-year compressor warranty. So again, as you have these conversations, these are some questions that you're going to be asking, kind of like what's the standard out there. Maintenance agreement requirement, again, it's up to you. I would talk with your facilities or your maintenance staff to find out what they're comfortable with as far as maintenance goes, and looking at other options. In this situation, for a milk cooler, you probably don't need a maintenance agreement, but again, ask your maintenance folks and whatever you're comfortable with. Packaging removal requirement. Again, just depends on the type of equipment, but the last thing you want to do is have a shipment come in and all of the wrappers and cardboard boxes and wood fill up your dumpster. Now your dumpster's full. You can't, you know, having more room for trash, you have to have special pickup, which costs extra money. It's not uncommon to ask for them to take away remove the packaging when they leave. Additional installation costs if needed. Again, these are great questions to talk with those folks. I'll give you an example right now that I was just helping a school with. They installed a sink, but it turned out after the sink got installed, they needed additional installation costs, something they didn't plan for. So again, another reason why you want those site people, those specialists to come out, experts before they do the bid to do a site visit. They might, in that situation, would have been able to help the school saying, you know what, the way your plumbing is, could be 50 years old, it's not going to match up for the, what's the word I'm looking for, the requirements for the cities and states, the codes, special codes that they have for installing these type of things. Claire, anything else in that section you would like to add? We get it covered?
We got it covered.
All right. And then there's this catch-all. You know, no matter how good we do this, there's always going to be other types of requirements that you can have. In this situation, let's see what it was added. Bidder will be required to deliver and set up milk cooler along with training staff when operating the unit. Something that it would be very helpful. Sometimes they just drop it off and leave and you're like, where's the power button? So yeah, it's always nice to have that. And once you complete this, you'll submit it as part of your grant. And we'll look through this, making sure that there's enough information here to conduct the bid. Again, this was another reason this came up is that we found last year with the grants that had we had something like this out there, I think a lot of the schools would have liked it. So please let us know if we can improve this at all. You know, that's not perfect out of the gate. This is the first time we've used it, but we hope it's helpful, and don't hesitate to ask questions. Next up is the refrigerator. Again, it's all going to look very similar. The top part is all the same, but then the specifications obviously will vary for refrigeration units. We have an example here of what's being replaced. Intended use, storing food production and supplies. Let's see here, it is a reach-in. So by looking at the equipment that it's replacing, the bidder would be, okay, we're going to be doing a reach-in refrigeration unit versus a walk-in. And then here we have the product that you're looking for. It's a reach-in as well, or equivalent. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Claire? Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward, yeah.
Yeah. Again, you got to tell them where to send this to, and you'll see here that this is all going to be filled out, which is, again, not uncommon with any kind of refrigeration unit, like with the milk cooler. There are compressor warranties to think about. There's other things, again, you want to maybe talk to other schools and other businesses in the area to see what kind of issues they're having. You'll have experience, obviously, with the current equipment that you have, but if you've never bought this before, definitely recommend talking with the other folks in your area and other school peers to see.
One thought about warranty is most equipment comes with a standard warranty. You can ask above the warranty. We did do that with our dish machine. It was a very large dish machine, and we put it was a 1-year service labor parts, and we did expand it to 2 years. And obviously, whatever bidder is bidding, they're going to add that cost on to the product. Same with the maintenance. If you need the maintenance, this is a great place to put that so that those expenses are already in the bid. And if you receive the bid, you've already got it covered. But if not, you can always, talk with your school business, money people to see, is that a possibility? Because in the end, it might save you more money depending on the type of equipment too.
All right. Let's see here. Again, training on how to utilize the unit. So, and also when you're thinking about training, the maintenance part, like, is there something special that you need to do for this? Next up is a dish machine. Same thing. Everything looks exactly the same, except when you get down here to the requirements. And now that we've done a few of these, you're going to notice that the specifications aren't that elaborate. One of the things when you're thinking about specifications is that sometimes this information can seem overwhelming. And that's one of the reasons we recommend talking or requiring a site visit, is that those folks are going to walk through their various specifications, and they're going to highlight things that are critical. Those critical things are the things that will end up down here in the specifications. But if you don't want to go through all that, again, putting down the kind of product that you think that you're going to need and putting or equivalent will help those suppliers or bidders, again, identify that product that best matches up with what you're looking for. So you don't have to be overly, write too much information here, especially if you're uncomfortable explaining some of those specifications, which we find is pretty common, even for myself, and I think even Claire, after all those years, those specifications can be so detailed.
Yeah.
And again, this part here is the exact same thing, dish machine. And one thing that I know about dish machines is that having the site visit, depending on your water, the type of water that you have, will affect probably the type of equipment that you'll have. And also with the dish machines, think about the required soap and the sanitizers and things like that. They often will want to sell you those along with that. And if you don't use what they have, then sometimes that will void the warranty. And that's true for any of the equipment that you're looking to purchase. There's things that you might do that might void the warranty, so make sure you ask those questions. Now, with the vehicles, this is always going to be kind of tricky, because with the grant, the vehicle that they're bidding on most likely will not be there 6 months later. The vehicle inventory rotates pretty quickly, especially it changes a lot from year to year. In this situation, it's a delivery truck. And this is where you don't really require a site visit. This is where you will go out and actually talk to the different dealerships. Again, I recommend bringing this form and taking notes on it. Letting them know, like, what's it intended for? Like, am I going to be moving supplies from one warehouse to another? Am I going to be delivering meals? Are those meals going to be hot or cold? Will milk be a part of that? Will I need some sort of refrigeration in there as well? So having all that written down before you go and talk to them will really help. And you're going to find with vehicles, there is going to be a number of different solutions to your needs. And one thing to ask, do I need a new vehicle or do I want a used one? But I would recommend, if you're going new, be open on the year, because right now when these grants will be awarded, we'll obviously be transferring from 2019 to 2020. Those 2019s, and they may even have some 2018s on the lot that will meet your specifications, but maybe a little cheaper. And also with these vehicles, there's going to be a lot of modifications depending on how specific the use is going to be for that vehicle. Anything else you'd like to add, Claire?
Yeah, vehicles are a lot of details, so definitely refer to an expert on the specifications to ensure you're getting bids that match each other for the same type of components, especially your critical components, whether you need a lift gate, whether it's a dock, whether the size, things like that. Yeah.
And one thing we really haven't talked much about are stakeholders. Again, for all of these equipment, whether it's the milk cooler, refrigerator, dish machine, vehicle, the people using the equipment are a great resource to find out, hey, what's working well, what's not working, what would you change, what are needs are not being satisfied with the current piece of equipment, and then kind of to try to draft those into your specifications and highlighting how the current one that you're replacing, here are the things that I need to make sure that in addition to that, that it needs to occur. And for a combi oven, I'm going to defer to Claire here, because this is an area of combi ovens. I know they're common, but it's just not one of my specialty areas.
Right. Combi ovens are very popular right now because it gives you versatility in how you can utilize the machine, the piece of equipment for various types of products with better quality outcome than just having an oven. But they are also very complex pieces of equipment because you're dealing with water, and you're dealing with electric, so it's a little bit more complex. So those specifications are very critical to make sure you're obtaining what is going to work for your facility and for your needs. If you put specific needs, and again, with the site visit, definitely the experts will be able to give you the right guidance. And then also, you know, is it gas, is it electric, or is it steam, or the 3 different components that also will be connected to that. A little bit touch about the combis. What I know about those also is that the output from the combi, as well as this is the same for dish machines, some municipalities require that you have water tempering on the unit so that the water going into the sewer system is not at a very high temperature, which can really affect their whole system. So you want to make sure that you're checking on that component for both dish machines and for combi ovens if there is a drain tempering system needed on the piece of equipment for the municipality codes.
Well, that does it for all the equipment. We do have some things to review here.
Okay, so writing your bid to win. You want to make sure that, again, your specifications are the key, that you're going to be receiving the piece of equipment that you need and that you don't have any hidden costs in the end. And so bringing in experts will help greatly in ensuring that you're going to be winning a piece of equipment that really services your school for many years, and making sure that the bidders really know what you need. One thing we did see quite a few bids that were pulled off the internet, which isn't a bad way as long as you're comparing apples to apples. And that's the main thing with bids, is you do need to receive your 3 bids, but they do need to be apples to apples, that they do match with the same specifications, and that's real key. And then bids include all your requirements. Don't forget about your delivery, installation, and disposal, as we've talked about here in the presentation. And the bottom line for specifications is what you specify is what you get. And so doing your homework ahead of time, bringing in the experts, will help ensure that the piece of equipment that you win will really service your school. So I think that kind of wraps us all up here. Let's double check if we have any questions that we'd like to address.
We have a few up there.
Yeah. So I've been addressing some of the questions in the chat box. Just to reiterate, all the forms can be found on the BPI website under USDA Equipment Grants. For each piece of equipment, you'll want to download a separate specification sheet. So if you're applying for 2 pieces, you'll need to submit 2 specification sheets. Each SFA can apply for up to 2 pieces of equipment per SFA. So an example of that would be your central kitchen. You could get 2 pieces, or you can apply for 1 at the elementary and 1 at the middle school. The other thing is that we've really asked that you download these forms in Adobe. You can download the most basic version of Adobe. When you download it in Google, it distorts all the forms, and we might have to have you resubmit. The other thing that someone just asked is about the free and reduced percentages. So we base the awards, priority is given to schools that have over 50% free and reduced eligible students. We look at your September claims. If you have a central kitchen that services 3 other sites, we will take all those numbers into consideration. So we have to total all of your free and reduced percentages that of eligible students based on your September claim, based on how many schools this piece of equipment will service. So that's why some of you might have thought you were at 50% as a district, but maybe something's a little different when you do the calculations based on the schools that were being serviced by the equipment. Do we need bids for the first round of application process or not until the second round? No, so the first round is just filling out the application, showing your intent to apply for the grant, and then filling out your specifications. We think that this way will help schools move forward because we can see your specifications, double check with you to make sure you have everything addressed within your specifications before sending you out to the bidders. That way you can get a little more consistency among the bids. Last year we kind of had bids that were all over the place, so we want to really help expedite the process and help SFAs out with that.
I have another training.
And we will do another training for that part. So this first part will be till November 15th, and then we'll work through all the specifications, letting SFAs know about moving forward around December 4th-ish. And then we'll let you know that you can proceed, and we'll put up the new documents for proceeding and getting bids. And we'll do a webinar on how to get the bids. Also, our goal is to award the equipment grants around May 2020. So if you have equipment that you absolutely need replaced right now and you happen to replace it in the next couple months, we are not allowed to go back and reimburse you for that. The equipment must be purchased after the award has been distributed. Another question on the specification sheet, do we need to put in bid due date if we're not getting the bids until the first round of paperwork is done?
Yes, that would be correct. They can hold off on that.
Yeah. So yeah, you can hold off on that part, and then once we tell you can proceed, you can add in the date that you would like to have back. PowerPoint on the site. We are working on getting it published and out to everybody. And then the DUNS number, that is a unique 9-digit identifier. So you'll want to, for businesses, and you'll want to double check with your business office to find out what that number is. Are there any other questions?
There was one on, this is Julie Cox. There was one other question about why someone didn't get an equipment grant last year when they applied. And there are many reasons that someone might not be able to qualify. So it's possible that you asked for a piece of equipment that was below the capitalization threshold. It's possible that there was higher free and reduced percentages schools ahead of you that received equipment. It's possible that you had received a piece of equipment in the past, and so that puts you at a lower priority. USDA demands that we do that. As far as what you can do to make sure that you have the best chance possible, that would be, number one, listening to this webinar. So step number one, check that box so that you know what's expected in phase one. Make sure that you complete that fully to the best of your ability and submit it on time so that we can go over it to make sure that your specifications are set up to get the best information possible.
And if you would like further information on why you did not receive the grant, you can always reach out to me at the DPI Equipment Grant email address, and I can let you know what happened with your application. The other question is, I think there's a little bit of confusion on the percentage of bids that were awarded to schools that have less than 50% capitalization threshold. So if you wrote down that your capitalization threshold was $4,000 and you applied for a milk cooler that was $2,000, you are automatically disqualified because according to the grant rules and regulations, you have to be above your school's capitalization threshold. And then schools that are under 50% free and reduced, we sometimes will get to those, but we have to give priority to schools that have never received that are higher than 50% free and reduced, and then we go to schools that have received equipment that are above 50% free and reduced, and then there's a rare chance that we could go under 50% free and reduced. So I would definitely double check your September claims and make sure you're higher than 50% free or reduced eligible.
I'm not sure.
We,
It is. One's the tax ID number, the other one's for the Dun and Bradstreet number.
okay. The question on, is the DUNS number the same as our tax ID or FEIN? And they are two different numbers. So we have a piece of equipment for two buildings, and one building is over 50%. So each piece of equipment, we rank the schools that it'll service. We'll take the total free and reduced percentage for each piece of equipment.
So if you want a dish or a dishwasher that services two schools within one building or two schools, we have to take the total enrollment and the percentage that qualify for free and reduced of the two schools total and find out what that free and reduced percentage is. And that is how you will be ranked for a new piece of equipment for the grant.
So you could have one school that's at 90% free and reduced and another school that you're applying for that's at 50%. You'd most likely get the 90% award. So kind of think about your percentages and where you're at and your most needed piece of equipment. And on the application packet, page 3, you'll put your most needed piece of equipment, and then page 4 will be the second most needed piece of equipment. I would say if you are under 50% and you're close to 50%, it's still worthwhile. If you're under 40%, it's not worthwhile to apply. So on the application, for Trina's question about a central kitchen that serves 3 sites in the same building, I would have to double check your contract. I might need to get back to you on that, on how you would record it. 'Cause if you have a central kitchen, you'd write under school building and name, you'd write that and mark that as your central kitchen, and the number of sites served over in the food production source. And then each of the different sites you'll want to list underneath. So you'll write the other 3 sites underneath. And then you would put those as your satellites. So your school should match what your contract is saying if you have satellite schools or central. The 50% free and reduced is not district-wide. It is based on the building the equipment grant is applied for, yes. Unless you have a central kitchen that services the other 3 sites within your SFA, you have 1 central kitchen, then we would do your district-wide. But if you have 2 different central kitchens that are servicing different schools, we'd only look at the schools that the equipment will be servicing. For CEP schools, we do a percentage, so you'll still want to write out your, I'll check on that one. We look at your ISP for that one. So there's kind of a back process for CEP schools, but you'll want to write in your total enrollment for September, and you're eligible for free, and then we look at some behind-the-scenes formulas for that.
Also, it's important to note that if you're applying, if you're a district that has many schools, and one of the schools received, or three of the schools received equipment in the past, if you're applying for a different school and none of the previous equipment services, you would be considered a first-time award winner for that school. So that does give you priority over somebody who is asking for a second piece of equipment that had received an award before.
To determine your school's capitalization threshold, you'll want to talk with your business administration office. We leave that up to each school to determine what your capitalization threshold level is.
The question, if we use equipment for school lunch and breakfast, will DPI reimburse 100% or just percentage used for lunch? All programs, all school nutrition programs are considered reimbursable. So breakfast and lunch, that's no problem. If you have school activities on the weekends or after school where the PTA uses that piece of equipment or the church does, then you would need to, we would not reimburse the whole amount.
And that can be seen on the application page 3. Trying to show you, hold on, a little technical difficulty. But on page 3 of the equipment grant, you'll see percentage of kitchen use will be prorated, so you total all of your child nutrition programs, and then other non-school or school activities, so maybe the church parish uses the kitchen, you would say they use it 4% of the time, and then we would prorate based off of that, and then if there's any existing funding for purchasing, you could write in yes or no. Maybe the school can help cover the cost of installation or hookups or something. And then, can you explain the statement requested equipment must cost more than your SFA's threshold? That goes back to the capitalization threshold. So once again, you'll want to check with your business office. If your capitalization threshold is $2,000, then the equipment that you apply for has to be above $2,000. If your capitalization threshold is $7,000, you can use USDA's capitalization threshold of $5,000. It's whichever is less. If the SFA's capitalization threshold is less than USDA's, you use that. If USDA's is less, you would use USDA's of $5,000. The difference between a CEP and non-CEP school, that comes into your meal reimbursement. CEP is your community eligibility provision schools. Those are the schools that provide free meals to all students, and they claim based off of percentages, where your non-CEP school types are your standard counting and claiming schools. For Jamie, who asked about the free and reduced at 70%, and you've received a previous grant, what's the likelihood of getting a grant, and is it worth applying? We usually go into and award schools that have received previous grants that are above 50%. It's hard to tell at this point because we don't know who our applicants are and what their percentages are. But if you look at the previous awards from 2018, which is on our website, it's broken down by how many schools have received previous awards that are over 50% free and reduced.
Is a water station fountain considered equipment? If the water station will be placed in the cafeteria? That's a great question. We've been asked that before, and it is considered equipment. However, the price of a water station is not usually a huge amount, and so the cost of it would need to be over the capitalization threshold. So with all of this equipment, we're telling you that you don't need specifications in step one, but it would be worth your time to go online and get a feel for what the pricing is of the equipment, because if it's lower than the capitalization threshold, then we cannot award it no matter how needy you are.
Are there any other questions?
Great question.
Very good.
We'll remain on here for maybe another 5 minutes-ish if you have any last-minute questions.
Type in.
All right, well, this wraps up our meeting. Thank you for attending, and we look forward to reviewing your application.
Bye-bye.